up and I'll play it to you afterwards while we ask Bar-Ilan to increase the speed of their internet for future conferences. The place was the headquarters of the United Nations in Geneva, 2009. It was the World Conference Against Racism. You remember it was called Durban II, the repeat of the original Durban Conference. And inside everybody waited as the guest of honor came to speak. You remember very well, President Ahmadinejad was there to lecture the world on human rights and to lecture the world about racism. I was there in the Palais des Nations, the headquarters of the bastion of UN human rights, and following that session, a little bit later on in the afternoon, I was in the foyer, I was in the corridor, and I saw coming towards me one of my heroes, maybe yours, Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel was standing there. I went over to go and speak to him, and as I did, a group of anti-Israel protesters also came towards him. And what I then saw shocked me, because what did they chant at Elie Wiesel? Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor, writer, human rights activist, being called a Nazi in the chamber of the United Nations. You couldn't make it up. That was in Geneva in 2009. The place was UC Berkeley in California in April 2010. A motion had been tabled for the student government to call on the university and the general divestment of companies that had connections and did business with the State of Israel. 1,000 people turned up for that debate, banging drums and singing. They stayed all through the night, and the debate went on until 5 a.m. in the morning. Now, they didn't win that debate, they lost. But they felt like they had already won. Why? They'd managed to bring to the table the idea, the very idea, that Israel should be boycotted and that was something we should be discussing and debating. They were banging drums and singing songs because in their mind, they had already won. They hated Israel so much, they stayed through the night. It motivated them. The place was Edinburgh University in February 2011. A crowd rushed the stage to prevent an Arab speaker from speaking from the lectern. Why was the audience preventing this Arab from speaking? Because he was an Arab Israeli. In fact, he was an Arab Israeli diplomat, a Bedouin diplomat named Ismail Khalidi. He was prevented from speaking as anti-Israel activists rushed the stage and literally wouldn't let him speak. Hate had shut down debate. It doesn't have to be like this. And I would offer that there is a twin strategy that we need to implement. One is to be responsive, and two is to be strategic. And as we recognize now from both this forum and the ones previously, public discourse is the new front line. We have to be responsive not to allow lies to fill a vacuum of silence. A lie told 1,000,000 times is still a lie, but when there's nothing to oppose it, it is allowed to take hold, it takes shape, and it breathes. Misinformation is often portrayed as information. Unless we counter it, that will continue to be so. As US Supreme Court Louis Brandeis once said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. In addition, we need to be strategic. As well as responding to lies, we need to project a different voice. We need to brand ourselves, not allow ourselves to be branded by anti-Israel activists. We need to not use their language, not take on their lexicon of hate and use that in our own debate. We need to portray Israel, the freest country in the Middle East, a country of diversity, of democracy, of compassion, a story of an ongoing quest for peace where we wish to raise our children so that they can celebrate their own Jewish identity in their 3,000-year-old historic homeland. And we need to educate. We need to educate that one person can make a difference. There is very much a power of one. Has any generation ever exercised as much influence as the current generation, as much personal influence as the current generation? By a test, let's have a show of hands. I'd like you to raise your hand if you have in your email address contact list or on your Facebook more than 100 friends, let's say. Do you have 100 friends or email contacts on Facebook? Joe, you have to play as well. Please keep your hands up. Let's 200 friends on Facebook, 200 friends or email contacts. Keep your hands up. 300. Keep your hands up. 400. I'm playing. Keep your hands up. 500.
Okay.
We're down to about, almost 10. 600. 800.
Sold.
1,000. Wow, I'm still playing. 1,300. 1,301. Okay, you win. Congratulations to the very popular people in the audience. You can, by the tap of a finger, by the click of a mouse, influence over 1,000, over 100, whatever it may be, people. And the ongoing network, the ongoing influence that then takes hold is absolutely incredible. This is something that our enemies know well and that we still continue to need to harness. We need to be energized with a sense of purpose. When I grew up in the UK, the ongoing campaign when I was a little kid was Soviet Jewry. And around the world, people got out on the streets and made a difference for Soviet Jewry to bring them home. On Hanukkah, we would stand around in the train station on a flashlight parade with our torches, we called it in the UK. You can spot the Brits here because they're the ones wearing the ties. We would stand out there on the streets and make a difference because Soviet Jewry was the pressing cause of our time. Well, I put it to you that the case of Israel, the case of the Jewish state under threat, is today's pressing cause of our time. And we need to inject that kind of enthusiasm and activism that we once had for other causes into our youth and educate that so that they take on their own responsibility as well. And this really is why I'm getting the look, so I know I have to wrap up. This is why NGOs, pro-Israel NGOs, have so much influence, because person-to-person diplomacy is the new diplomacy of our time. We take things much more on board when we hear it from a friend. If I see a link on a news site, I am less likely to trust it than if a friend shared it with me on Facebook or sent it to me via email as something that I should see. So person-to-person diplomacy enables us to reach out and build coalitions. As an organization as Stand With Us, we're doing that to enthuse people to stand up and to make a difference, because it begins with education. Through signs, through flyers, through posters, through countering anti-Israel events, through taking Israeli soldiers to go and speak on campuses across North America and across the world and have people understand what our young people, the same as their young people, what our young people face battling against asymmetric warfare, against terrorists in some of the toughest of circumstances and trying to remain true to their moral values. We're taking diverse young Israelis and having them tell Israel's story. More than that, we're investing in young Israelis to be the best ambassadors that they can be of their own country, because these are people who break stereotypes and make a difference. And some of them are here in the audience today. We create YouTubes, we're active online, we're bringing bloggers to Israel, people who can multiply, be a force multiplier for Israel's story, reaching out to tens of thousands of people from China, from the US, from Europe, reaching out to many different audiences. Journalists, medics. Last summer, 70 top medical students came from around the world to study in a humanitarian medical conference put on by the State of Israel, to learn from Israel's record in Haiti, to learn from how Israel battles against terrorists, etc. So we need to be responsive and strategic, and I will end with this. The place was Cambridge University in November 2010 in the prestigious Debating Society. The motion was, Israel is a rogue state. Speaking for the motion was a man called Gabriel Latner. He said, yes, Israel is a rogue state. Why? Because it's an oasis for women's rights, for gay rights, for religious freedom. It's the place in the Middle East where refugees flee to rather than away from. So yes, Israel is a rogue state. The motion was defeated by 74%. Gabriel, a pro-Israel activist, had used his creativity in order to make a difference. The place was downtown Seattle in December 2010. An anti-Israel bus campaign was due to hit the streets. Strewn across the side of buses, you may have seen it, was due to be advertisements saying, your tax dollars at work, Israeli war crimes. Through activism, through people emailing, ringing phones off the hook, that campaign was defeated. And our offices there, and probably many of you, took an active part in that campaign. The city council member, we have an email from the city council member saying she'd never seen a response like this before. It was like, she said, an international incident. We can make a difference. 30th of March was designated an International Day of Action against the State of Israel to boycott Israeli goods. We turned that around and called it a Buy Israeli Goods Day, using their terminology, BIG, in order to turn it on its head, and we're doing so in a positive way. Not only do we beat a boycott, we completely defeat a boycott, and we allow people to engage positively with the State of Israel. These are the kind of strategies that work. These are the kind of strategies that we need more of. The place is Bar-Ilan on the 4th of April 2011. It's not enough to diagnose the problem. It's not enough to say we know what it is. We have to act. We have to be an inspiring example to the next generation and be part of the solution. Thank you very much.